Hello, nerds and future nerds. Welcome back to the VF Comics and Graphics podcast. I'm Marcus. You're Megan.
I thought Tom was
Jesus.
supposed to go. I thought Tom was going first.
No,
No,
we already
I was
said you
following
were
you.
going next, you fucking...
I thought that Tom said that he's going and I'm going. That is what I understood from that.
No,
This is
that
going to
Tom-
be
the opposite.
the
that
worst.
Tom was
This
gonna
is going to
go
be the
the
worst
second.
episode
Opposite,
that
no.
we've done.
I was waiting
This is
for Tom.
So
Can we
that-
start over?
This is going to be the worst episode we've had.
It's
You
gonna
know
be
what?
we
No,
fucking
so
start
good.
no.
over?
That was
We're-
Megan.
Okay. Well, no.
Anyways,
You have to take that.
well, no,
I
I'm-
cussed. You have to take
I'm
that
gonna.
out.
It's fine. It's too late.
My
So
mom's
I'm gonna
listen.
start right
This is gonna
here.
be the
I'm gonna
one
start.
episode where she listens.
I'm gonna start right here.
Okay.
I'm Marcus.
I'm Megan.
You
Fuck
almost-
me. I was waiting on Tom again. I don't know why.
And I'm
Do it again. Shit. Fuck.
I want to keep
Say
that.
it,
I
start.
like it.
No, I am. I've already decided.
Oh my
Okay,
Wait,
god.
who
I'm
is-
back then. I'm
Who-
Tom. I'm a big fan of what just happened. I really like it.
I'm Megan. I hate everyone.
Megan, you've already gone. Did you forget?
Oh my god.
So this is what happens when we get together. So welcome everybody to our comic book and graphic novel podcast where we talk about all sorts of things, whether it be the industry or the books that they make for all of us to read. Now, comics and graphic novels can cover just as broad of a range of topics as any form of art. So we may not talk about everything, but if there's something interesting going on we're not talking about, make sure to go to our social media on Facebook at VF Comics and Graphics or Instagram or Twitter. You'll find those links in the description and let us know what you want to hear about, because right now we're mostly going to talk about what we're interested in, and we'll probably still keep doing that even with your suggestions, but your suggestions would be nice too. I'm still going to do whatever I want to do. So
Clearly, so are the rest of us.
yes. So so we're going to start off with a couple pieces of news before getting into our main discussion this week about the mouse bannings and comics being banned, books being banned in general, and then we'll end up with what we're actually reading right now. So for our first piece of news, this is something that kind of speaks to me because I read a lot of mainstream DC and Marvel stuff. DC has announced a new Dark Crisis this summer, which is their next big event. For those who don't know what a crisis is DC basically, for a lot of their humongous crossovers, have labeled them as a crisis. There's Crisis on Infinite Earths. There is Identity Crisis, Final Crisis. In fact, just a year and a half ago, when we were doing the Dark Knights Metal event, they referenced all those crises. Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
I'm barely a reader, let alone a talker.
That's why we're on a podcast.
I talky good.
That's why you're a
And-
librarian.
Yeah, that's why I'm a librarian. Oh my
Almost.
gosh, I have
Yeah,
made a
it's good.
mistake. These have always been big deals because some of the biggest of them usually have some sort of like multiple Earths coming together, or it updates continuity. They are always major universe changing events. That's all it is they are event comics where pretty much all of the books in a publisher's, publishing house come together for a crossover story that has major ramifications. In fact, the first major crisis was Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they killed the Flash, the original Flash, Barry Allen, and Supergirl. Yes, they actually killed them permanently. In fact, it would be another almost 15 years before they would bring that Flash back. That's right. A mainstream superhero was actually kept dead for more than a decade after that
That's
event.
kind of
Yeah,
wild.
that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. In fact, to the point that whenever the Justice League cartoon came out in the 2000s, they used the Flash, that the character that took the mantle of the Flash from Barry Allen, who was the first Flash, and they used Wally West because he was the only Flash a lot of people had grown up with at that point.
Huh.
So that's what all these are. And apparently, this new Dark Crisis is, without getting into too much detail, because I don't know a lot yet, it's really interesting for people like me who love just big fun events with excuses to do crazy stuff. It looks like it's going to reference a bunch of those old crises while creating a new one because, as we talked about the other week, the Justice League died. They're killing the Justice League. How long that'll last, I don't know. But the big thing about this event seems to be that the heavy hitters are gone. So, how are the heroes and villains going to face this new dark crisis coming at them? So, yeah, if you like company wide crossover events, this looks really cool. And they're trying to evoke a lot of nostalgia here, but it's working on me. So,
That's
I am
good.
down to come
That I
out.
mean, because I feel like you're the target audience for like events like that.
Yep, I
Yeah.
am.
So like, I mean, that just shows that it's a successful move for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially because, like, after the last big crossover, Dark Knight's Death Metal, I was like, oh, I'm going to back out of DC for a while. Well, that didn't last. Not at all. Not even a little bit. That's really that all I have for the Dark Crisis. But Meg has another interesting bit of news for us.
I really don't. It's fine. I don't know if you've ever heard of Snoop Dogg. Just a small time
Wait, I thought,
artist,
didn't he change his name to Snoop Lion? What happened to that?
Oh shit, I
You know,
don't
I
know,
do
did he?
remember that, but man, I never hear of anyone refer to him really as Snoop Lion.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
I mean,
It's like a
that's
couple
like the
years
artist
ago. I'm
formerly
gonna
known
check
as
while you're
Prince.
talking
Everyone
about
still
it, but
calls him Prince. So,
Okay, well,
while
the
Tom's checking
person
that out.
possibly formerly known as Snoop Dogg.
it was just
He's
briefly as Snoop Lion. Apparently, he like
oh,
did
okay,
away
he's
with
back
that.
to
Yeah,
Snoop
he's
Dogg.
like
Okay,
known
great.
professionally still as Snoop Dogg. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay. So Snoop Dogg is co-creating a horror anthology graphic novel, and I just felt like people needed to know that because that's good. That's good news. I'm excited. It looks the art. I only saw like a brief panel, but it looked wonderful. I loved the art that I saw. It was very like classic horror. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so he's co-creating this anthology of urban-themed horror stories entitled "Tales from the Crypt" with Eisner-nominated creator Rodney Barnes. And Rodney Barnes
Kudos on
is
that title and like,
it's very
yeah,
good. No,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. Rodney Barnes is I know that he's worked on television, but he also wrote Philadelphia. That's really all I know that he's done. I think he also produced a lot of shows. Oh yeah, he produced My Wife and Kids and Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh,
And and
cool.
American Gods. I did not know that. So he has had his hand in a lot of pots. Is that the phrase? Is that the
No one's had their hand in as many pots as Snoop Dogg. Tom made a fantastic comparison earlier when describing Snoop Dogg writing a comic.
It's one of my favorite. Like I think it was like a viral tweet or something, but it's like that Snoop like completed the game of life, and at this point is just doing side quests.
It's very
Because
good.
he was so successful, so young. I mean, like off
Mhm.
of what we heard about him as kids doing alone is a lifetime of achievement. But I mean, he's still just doing so many things. It's incredible.
It's incredible that, yeah, he's
I
managed to
love him.
consistently stay relevant. Like, And
Yeah.
he's shown up not only in even
Yes.
though like a lot of the stuff he's done has adult matter, he's managed to show up in like stuff for kids too, because I think that he really is a champion of like childhood literacy and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so like he just has maintained a presence.
I love Snoop. I love his music, for like
Yeah.
big time.
He
But
very
just
very cool
as
guy,
a
very
person, yeah,
talented.
he just seems like a really really
Yeah,
good guy.
he does. So yeah, Tales from the Crypt, that's coming this fall, I believe. So
It'll
extend
be
in the
like an anthology
description.
series.
But it'll be an
It's an
anthology.
Okay.
anthology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Horror anthology to
get
me is the way
excited.
to go. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm always big on like horror anthologies. A lot of horror can only be stretched so much. That's why
Yes.
sometimes horror shows don't work as well. Like Ashley and I are watching the Scream TV show on MTV. It's half terrible, half great. It's because they have to stretch out, even though it's only 10 episodes per season, it seems like they're having to stretch out so much like
Yeah.
of the teenage drama and crap to have something to fill the episodes with, because I mean, how many people are going to die before you stop letting your kids run around by themselves at
Yeah,
night?
It's true, and I don't know if this is the the case for like horror graphic novels or anything like that, but I know I've heard this said for horror video games that that's why they're so short in length, because
Mm-hmm.
after a while, and movies don't really have to worry about this because it's just generally like an hour and a half to 2 hours, but after a while you stop being scared, like you just becomes the
Yeah.
norm for
You
you,
get
you know.
desensitized, right?
And series definitely like ongoing,
Mhm.
that's a struggle that you'd have, you know.
Yeah, so like anthology,
Yeah,
good,
shorter the
and
better. Yeah.
absolutely. So that'll be really, really cool. Thanks, Snoop Dogg, for bringing more cool stuff to our life. I will definitely have to pick
Yeah.
that up. Well, and that is all the news that we have for this week that we're going to focus on, because I really, really, really want to talk to you guys about something that's been burning through the internet. I say burning because they're burning these things too, and that is book bannings and book burnings. And it all like, and this has been going on for a while, but a really big book banning that got hit recently in Tennessee, correct?
Yes.
In
Yeah, it was
Tennessee
Tennessee.
was the
Yeah.
banning of the graphic novel Mouse. Now, for those who don't know, Mouse is basically about anthropomorphic animals representing different races during the Holocaust. And mice Jewish people are represented by mice, and it's not focused on the war part of World War II. It is specifically focused on the Holocaust, and it is a tough read. Megan, I think you've been reading it recently, just to
Yeah,
get informed.
I just read both volumes. I had never read either of them,
You,
which is
you're
wild for me
finished with
because I'm
it
really
at this
into.
point?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I
Okay.
finished it. I read a lot of like Holocaust stuff, so I don't know why I had never read that before. But it was great. Both of the volumes were wonderful. I mean, hard reads for
Yeah,
sure,
such a hard read for
but
sure.
very, very well
Yeah.
written.
Yeah, and so it started off with like they were banning it in the library at the school, if I remember correctly. They don't, these people, when these bannings occur, they it's sometimes they go after what's being taught in the classroom, but they often don't want these available in the public library for anybody to be able to pick up. And they take advantage of the fact that obscenity laws are very traditionally unclear. Obscenity is really about what do the majority think about the material. And unfortunately, it's really easy to sound like you're the majority on the internet when really it's just five people who can't believe that their kids would have to hear about awful history. It's real, it happened, and you can't ignore it.
Which shows.
Well,
Oh,
and
sorry,
the
Megan.
oh no, no, I was just gonna say the reason for this I think the reason that they gave for wanting it out of the schools was there was one scene that had nudity, and then language was the reasoning that they gave,
Hmm.
which is absurd because the scene that they're referring to, I had to look for the nudity panel because I was like, I don't remember what they're talking about, and it was this one tiny little uh panel from when, well, spoiler alert, from when his mom killed herself, and it was her in the bathtub. and I mean, you don't see anything, and I was just like,
On a
hmm.
mouse.
On a
On a
mouse, yeah.
mouse.
Keep like
Well,
Like,
okay, so this was actually like a this was actually like a a meta panel. It was actually a um something that he had written that he was showing in the uh in the graphic novel. So it was an old work that he had drawn.
oh,
And so
okay.
it was
I thought
beautiful.
I had heard that the nudity aspect had to do with one of the mice.
Oh, maybe so then, because
There
I
might be
thought it was
another one
that
that you've
scene.
missed in
I mean,
there.
there were like naked bodies because Holocaust.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I granted I read it
Yeah.
in 2008,
Mhm.
so it's been a while, but I don't remember that. I like that's not what stuck out to me when when I
No,
read
and it
that
wouldn't
book.
to anybody. And if anybody is reading this and is getting kicks out of like the sexual content in this particular book, there are much deeper things that you need to be worried
A hundred
about.
I've
percent.
been
Well, and
listening
we
to
brought
a
that up when
true
talking about it earlier. Is that it's not even sexual content? Like that's not why
It's
the
no.
nudity's
not.
there.
And
So
It's
that's exactly it. The
no.
argument that it is. It's like, if you think there's sexual content, I want you to know that you have a lot in common all of a sudden with several serial killers that I've been listening
Yeah,
to about on
it's
like
not
several other
good.
podcasts. Like, that's concerning. But what it is they always want to twist these things into like, oh, this is sexual or this is too violent. That parent and those adults, they don't want their kids' life to be censored until they're 18 to make up their own mind. These are the kind of people who they are going to censor what their kids see for as long as they're alive. Their goal is not to help others. They're also under this weird misconception that feeling bad is not something you should ever feel. And I feel like any adult, regardless of, knows that that's not a reality of life.
No.
Is that, sometimes bad things happen and we have to learn to deal with them. But again, people are just like, well, I don't want that sort at schools. There's a lot of arguments about what should and should not be taught in schools. But the second you start erasing, and this isn't just erasing, fictional content, these events really happened and they don't want their kids to know about it. They want their kids to have a disconnected knowledge at best of it. And knowing there was a Holocaust and reading a book like Mouse are two very different things.
I think it's a hot button issue right now. Well, we know it is,
Yeah.
because library censoring and book burnings have been in the headlines more frequently than you would ever want. But I think it's definitely going to be a bigger issue. And like to tie this into us being a comics and graphics podcast, comics and stuff like comics are usually a target for things like that, especially alternative comics. I definitely have seen in newspapers and stuff like that, and it will be an issue because schools were a gateway for conservative issues. I'm trying to think how to word it, in the Virginia governor race, and it was a success.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is, like the Times reported, that is going to be a focus moving here on out as we start to go into midterm elections, is
Mm-hmm.
education and what our kids are looking at and all that. That's going to be something that we're talking about a lot and seeing a lot of and stuff like that. So I think this issue isn't going away anytime
And
soon, and it's a scary one because I think it's just, I think we're all in agreement, and I don't want to speak for anybody, that it's dangerous to remove material from people having access to it like that. That can be a very scary thing and hard to govern. To use
yeah, I mean,
that
like,
word there.
where do you even draw the line? Speaking
Yeah.
of Virginia, apparently someone on a Virginia school board even said recently, and this is the kind of dangerous things that people in power say because they create this illusion of just like, well, I guess it's how it is now. And I always hear people say like, you know, these are how things are now when they're really not. but their words were quoted as saying, "I guess we live in a world now that our public schools would rather have kids read about gay pornography than Christ." And it's like,
Yeah.
that person is making
Oh
decisions
man.
about the education of our
Oh
children,
man.
that they can make a blanket statement like that during a school board meeting, like during like an official, like this is supposed to be a professional meeting. They're going to say stupid shit like that.
I have
Yeah.
so much to say about that. I have so many. I just want to talk about like, oh man, I shouldn't get into.
There, I see, and I was the
And
same way. I hesitated as soon as I even used like a label of like which type of politics are focusing on it right now. I was
yeah,
like, I don't necessarily. But I mean, honestly,
yeah,
like, I will say with the disclaimer that that is factually correct. Like, and in using that term, I'm talking specifically about like Glenn Youngkin running for governor and winning as a conservative candidate, focusing on a conservative tightening up in the education realm,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I got to that breadcrumb. Tom's
Yep.
rant over.
uh,
And-
well, and a lot of, I was just gonna say a lot of like schools and libraries don't have like these certain policies in place about what the kinds of content that they're how they're policing this and how they're deciding what should stay and what is, I don't know, inappropriate for that age. And so a lot of people are having to go back and create these policies, which is good, and most of the policies are actually keeping stuff in rather than pushing it out.
Yeah.
And that's
Which
the
is
thing is
good
like, if
in
you're
most
gonna, if
cases.
to me the thing that needs to happen, it's like, if you're gonna point at Mouse, like, like the arguments of this person, like a school board person brought up comparing gay pornography than Christ. My assumption is that person is interested in bringing the Bible into schools. Well, I hate to tell you this about the Bible, but there's some questionable content for kids to read in
Oh
there
yeah.
too,
For sure.
based on the parameters they're putting on other books. And so you ban a book about the Holocaust, I feel like you are really opening up to where the right people can come in and get things on the other side, to the point that you don't have anything, and now you have actively restricted access to any sort of information. It's one thing I do like about public libraries. We have things in our library system that I could not disagree more with. But it is not my job, in my opinion, to base what we collect. Or it's not my opinion should not be the basis for what we collect and have.
Yeah.
In school libraries, and I think where the school library argument comes into, it's really complicated, is that these are kids. These are our children. And while I think some are taking it too far, I think that there's books that are being banned out there that we're not hearing about in the news, because maybe, there's some argument that that shouldn't be in an elementary or middle school or junior high library. Mouse is one that definitely raised a lot of eyebrows, because it is an educational tool for teaching about the Holocaust, a real historical event that there are people in power who think that it did not occur,
Well,
which
this
is
this brings up the issue too, like going back to the government thing. Sorry to cut in, but I do want to get before we get further away from it, and it's no longer
Mhm.
relevant. Is that a lot of these issues are being brought up under the topics of parental control and input in school and curriculum and stuff like that, and so I think that does go along with what you're saying of it's really dangerous to let certain people curate that,
Mhm.
or there's and just to have that as an open door thing, There are some people out there that you're like, yes, please, it would be great to have your input. But there are also people that we've met in life that you're just like, man, I would not want that person adding
Mhm.
salt to the soup, like
Yeah.
and I think that feeling's universal. We have all met people of opposite ideals, that whatever you have, that you feel that way, and And so, I mean, that's what's going on with this is that's the debate, you know.
Well, and you bringing up, you people of the opposite ideals, making some of those decisions. But I've even had a argument with a family member where they were talking about putting the Bible in the school, and I was like, which one? Well, which one? Like, even Christians, even
Yes,
people
that's
who
a
are
great
supposedly on the
point.
same side can't agree with which one of these and what interpretation of those events is the right one.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
you don't even have to
Hmm.
go to the
that's
other
so
side to
true.
find that difference. Like, you can find it in the people next to you. Like, for
I
instance,
always I forget about that's a thing. Yeah, like
yeah,
that's so
like,
true.
you don't even you don't have to go to the opposites. You can find it in your neighbor. You can find it. I'm sure if we dug through certain things, we could find it between the three of us. Let's do that. Let's just have an entire podcast where we find
Oh,
out what
jeez.
we could not disagree with more on.
Oh my
This could be
god.
fun.
Maybe let's not do that.
Yeah.
um and so before we get moving on, because I feel like we're definitely echoing what I think a lot of people's sentiment is about these book bannings. There was a Tennessee pastor who's known for doing some pretty insane stuff who created a book burning event. He actually created a book burning event. He's like, bring
That's
your Harry Potter, bring your
yeah.
Twilight.
That's like a scene like in my brain. That's like an image like when you're watching like a fictional uh or not fictional about
True.
someone taking over power, and like they're like the
Yes.
first thing we do is burn all the books.
Yes, it's
Like,
never the good guys in the story.
no, it is
Like this is a
not.
comics and graphics podcast. I'm sure also we have a lot of bleed over into like certain forms of fiction that we all like and movies that we've all seen. It's never the good guys that are
It isn't.
censoring that material
Hmm.
in that way
No.
and doing the big bonfire with books and records and photographs and stuff like that. I just
Yep.
never. And please, if there is, that's like we would love to see the lone story. Like what story has the good guy doing that? Like
Yep.
that's just not the actions of the good guys. But let us know that story so I can fucking avoid it
Well,
because I don't want
and
to read that
this
story.
always reminds me of an episode of Parks and Rec where they're trying to decide what to put into the time capsule.
Oh my god, yeah.
And
Oh
they
lordy.
someone brings up Harry Potter, or they bring up Twilight,
Twilight.
and it's Twilight, and one group of people is just like, it has overtly pagan satanic themes, and someone's like, I disagree. It has
It's too
like, I don't want it in because it has overtly Christian themes. It's like they were arguing that it was the opposite, but they both agreed that it shouldn't be in there. It was, and I mean, like,
Yeah, and
good.
that's
And
such great
well,
commentary on that.
yes. And I think going straight to, like, and this is just what the article says about, it being, um, Harry Potter, and it's in pop culture. It's like, oh, you're trying to grab attention for your little cult that you're creating there, because there are much more harmful, really harmful things out there than Harry Potter
And
and Twilight.
quick disclaimer: this is not because he's a pastor. Like none of us are like, you know, it's. I mean, I don't have a problem with a guy who's doing the book burnings because he's a pastor.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
not
no,
even.
no, no,
Like
no,
I
Yeah,
just want to
no.
make
sorry, it
that
took me
clear
even a
that we're
second to
not.
realize what
Yeah,
you're
sorry.
I
referring
was
to.
like, what did
No
you
No,
one
say?
is like
yeah, no,
I don't have a problem.
absolutely not,
religion.
absolutely
Just
not.
want to make that. Don't want anyone to think we're like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then
So
this guy has also referred to Twitter when he was banned on Twitter as he called Twitter a censorship Nazi. The guy burning books
yeah.
complained about censorship.
Is it Greg Locke? Is that who he
Yes,
is?
let
Yeah.
that
No.
Yes,
settle
His
in.
church is
man
crazy.
It's
alive.
just
I didn't
like,
even know
that's
that's who
like
it was. That's
that
who
is the
it would be.
equivalent of someone who believes in the flat earth saying we have members around the world. It's a sort of irony of just
Oh,
like,
Yes.
say what
beautiful,
you
So
said,
good.
but slowly.
beautiful.
I think about how I was very censored from a lot of things as a kid, possibly unintentionally, probably unintentionally. It just how I grew up. And I think about how ill prepared I was for some of the things that happened to me in life. And I'm imagining that on a scale like where we're taking history out from people's curriculum, and just how terrifying that could be
That's it.
on a much larger scale than just one person, not knowing how to deal with, I don't know, death. And
Yeah,
I don't know. It's fucking terrifying.
it is. It is. I,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I think y'all said it.
y'all all know this.
We do, but we're not the ones listening to it, So I like to make that point for the ones that are,
Well,
because to
what up,
me,
listeners?
like the one thing I would add to y'all stuff too is, and I think we all agree with this, is it's the subject matter of Mouse that's really important,
Mhm.
and that's why you should read the book. And it's something that is horrifying and is unpleasant, but it's something that everyone should learn about. And yes, even kids. I was a kid when I was taught that. I learned about it in 6th grade, and I doubt that. And this is finding its way into 2nd grade curriculum. I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. And so I'd hate to see that people are blocked off from that story, if that would be their route to being exposed to that bit of history, and
And
learning from it.
and kids are smart. They understand context. Like, no one's gonna read a book about the Holocaust and I don't know. I remember watching the movie Schindler's List as a kid,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of nudity in that, which was something I was not really exposed to. And 0% did I think about the fact that there was nudity because of the context. Like,
Yeah.
this was just like, this is how this actually happened. This is Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm getting off on a
no,
tangent. So
it's something we could definitely talk about for a while and really break down. The last thing I want to make sure to bring up is that there have been a lot of shops and comic book shops who are agreeing to send copies of Mouse for free to students who are in that district. And I think that that's really great. I think that that's really cool that they're
Yeah.
trying to spread it. However, I want to stress that I don't think that's the answer, because is the problem is that they're restricting free access to these materials for all people. And I'm sorry, but the more stuff gets banned, it's great that Mouse is being sent. Shops and publishers can't eat so much money that they send every banned book to families for free. So it's a fantastic gesture. I think it's helping bring it to the forefront and the conversation to the forefront. But let's make sure that we are, talking to our local government and voting for people who are not going to do these sort of things. Often the people who are willing to get that book are not the people I'm concerned about. Whew, that was fun. That was a fun conversation. Um, so let's go ahead and move on to our next part, because man, gosh, I feel like I could go on. I have so many other things I want to say about book
yeah,
bannings.
Yeah.
it's gonna get a little echo chamber-ish.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. We want to watch out for that. For sure.
That's a great way to put that. So let's talk a little bit about what we're reading. Meg, since we just talked about Mouse, you don't have to talk about it again.
I read Mouse.
Which, yay.
Yeah,
Heyo.
great. Yes. But what else have you been reading?
So I'm reading a memoir, surprise, surprise, called In Waves by AJ Dungo. Dungo? I'm actually not 100% sure how to pronounce his name. So if on the
Dungo makes
crazy
sense.
chance he's listening, sorry if I pronounced it wrong.
Also, thanks for
But
listening, AJ.
yeah, super cool. Love your work. So this is a memoir that he wrote about his late partner, Kristen, and the book is kind of two-toned. The present is kind of like a bluish tone, and then it goes back. The whole story is intertwined with segments of the past that are kind of like a sepia, and the whole book is kind of uh, surfing is kind of like the focal point of the book. So it's his partner's relationship with surfing, and how that, even when she was sick, and while after her death, how that kind of kept him close to her, was being like in the water. And then intertwined with excerpts about like famous people like surfers. And it's I haven't actually finished it yet, but so far it's really beautiful.
Sounds great. I really
It's
want
a
to read it.
nice.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
second you said surfing, Tom was like,
I really
yeah.
like it.
Yeah, I do.
I
I
know.
love
And I don't know anything about surfing, so it's actually been kind of fun for me learning, because you do actually learn a little bit about it.
Tom and I have been in the ocean together.
We have, yeah.
Well,
Twice.
the way you said that, swear. Tom and I have been in the
It was
ocean
awfully
together.
salty.
Wink, wink. Yeah, it's really good. I was reading it really late at night, and I just started crying, and I was like, I can't keep reading it because it's really emotional.
Oh,
I feel
man.
like looking at your face, you
But
were
it's
getting
good.
emotional talking about it a little
Oh,
bit.
I can't. I know. My face doesn't hide emotion very well. I'm
Well,
also
that's good.
truly
It must mean it was a
sleepy.
great book.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
It's very good. So that's about that. And Mouse, Mouse is kind of heavy. That's
It's
about all.
so heavy.
That's about
Yeah.
all I've been able to do.
Yes. So I have been Black History Month kind of got my mindset back onto something that happened this last year. Was DC relaunched all of their Milestone properties. Um, for those who don't know what Milestone is it was a DC imprint created in the 90s by a group of African American artists and writers like Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, and Derek T. Dingle. And they wanted to ensure that minorities were properly represented in American comics because they didn't think that they were. And what initially was just one book, there's a great interview Dwayne McDuffie had done at some point, and the gist of what he said was we couldn't do just one book because African Americans in comics fell under certain stereotypes. And we wanted to show that there's that same sort of diversity in this in that race group too, and they're not just falling under this. And so it turned into several different books that all took place in the same city with characters who sometimes interacted with each other, which is now referred to, I think, as the Dakota verse, because Dakota is the city. And for those who watched cartoons in the early 2000s, you've probably heard of Static Shock. And Static is one of those characters created by Milestone and Dwayne McDuffie. But there was a bunch of others, and they're all incredibly different characters. I can't even begin. But they, like, some of them at first seem like they feel certain black superhero stereotypes, but the way they interact with the world around them is just so incredible. But anyways, the imprint has been used and misused, and then it got pushed into the DC universe. But they've relaunched it, and it started with this book called Milestone Returns Infinite Edition Zero, and it's kind of like a here's how things started book, and it just gives you little clips of each of the characters that you're going to be dealing with. But it's an origins book. It's kind of how they all started. So I have been getting for some time the Static series, Static Season 1, under the Milestone Returns banner, and it is incredible. It focuses on a lot of issues that young black people are having to deal with in today's society, and what based off what's been going on the last few years. It's a very relevant book, and it shows Virgil. The name of Static's real name is Virgil, Virgil Hawkins, and it shows like he has a very diverse group of friends, and that they all have individual personalities in the way that they're dealing with it. He also, unlike a lot of superheroes, he has a family. He has a sister, and he has a mom and a dad, and they're all supportive, and they aren't killed at the beginning to motivate him or anything crazy like that. You get to see a real family life, which was really great, because sometimes books dealing with minority groups tend to focus on the tragedy around them, stereotypical tragedy. This does deal with some awful things that happen. For instance, what gives Static his powers gives a lot of people powers. It's called the Big Bang. But it was created by a gas that the police shot off during a peaceful protest. And some people died when their mutations developed. And some people lived with their mutations. And it's just an incredibly complex read, but it ties in. I started with it to Hardwire, which is another book that takes place in that. And like Virgil knows the character who is Hardwire as well, but I've only got one issue into that. But another really, really great book. And it's cool to see DC really highlighting these minority characters. And again, Dwayne McDuffie was a part of like the creation team that made all of these characters, but he's also single-handedly responsible, not single-handedly, but he's majorly responsible for the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons. He edited and worked on a bunch of those episodes. I believe he's responsible for, in that show, instead of dealing with your classic Justice League, he is one of the people that pushed for a more diverse league. So instead of getting the white Hal Jordan Green Lantern, John Stewart, the first black Green Lantern, is the Green Lantern for that show. And so here's the piece of trivia I want to tell you guys that I found out about Dwayne McDuffie that's really cool. So Dwayne McDuffie, he pushed for John Stewart to be in Justice League. John Stewart was voiced by Phil Lamar.
Oh,
Phil
wow.
Lamar is known by a lot of people as like from a lot of stuff, Pulp Fiction, but he was
Yeah.
on Mad TV.
Yep.
Keegan Michael Key also did some writing for Mad TV. And after Dwayne McDuffie's passing, Keegan Michael Key found out that him and Dwayne McDuffie were actually half brothers.
Whoa.
What?
What?
Yes. So Dwayne McDuffie, who is like really launched a lot of just, diversity at DC Comics and just high quality stuff all around, they share a father. And
Oh.
I can't tell if I don't know if dad was cheating on anybody. I don't know any of the story. I couldn't find any of the story behind what was going on, but they had different mothers, and Keegan Michael Key was put up for adoption, whereas Dwayne was raised by his father and his mother. And so Dwayne died a few years ago, unfortunately, which is very unfortunate because we lost a great talent. But yeah, Keegan Michael Key had done some research on his family, and he found out that
Wow.
that these two incredibly influential people, like they were half brothers, and
That's crazy.
they completely different beginnings and everything. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
if you're looking for some good reading, you're interested in the idea of the superhero, but you want to see something more complex, check out these Milestone books. They are incredible. I am going to go find some of the others. I know they've launched a few others since then. I'm really interested in Icon and Rocket because the classic story there was that Icon is kind of this immortal alien who took on the form of a black man, and he's a very conservative character, and his sidekick Rocket is a very liberal character, and that seems like a really interesting dynamic. I read that. I've been reading those, and then for funsies, I picked up a couple of different collections of Dark Knight's Metal because I love it. But this collection that I've been reading the last few days, Dark Knight's Rising, is about where all the evil Batman came from. Like it's their different origins for why they're evil. But the basis is that they come from the dark multiverse, and in the dark multiverse, every world that's created also dies. And so some of them, their story is basically they found out what was happening and they couldn't stop it. And so they're pissed. But just really, really, really cool. But that was just for funsies. And Tom, have you had time to check out anything this week? I know
I've
one
been
of your
trucking
sons
through
started
my
walking.
big giant hardback Gideon Falls book. I'm looking forward to having more time to read. I just wrapped up a month-long songwriting class, and that has been eating up most of my free time. So
Oh yeah,
That's
who
so
was that
cool,
class
though.
with?
with Robin Pecknold of Fleet Foxes. He was the teacher.
No.
Yes.
Are you
Yeah.
Holy cow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was mind-blowingly good. I did it through this program
that's
called School of
awesome.
Song, and yeah, so I wrote 4 songs over the month, like one per week, and like recorded them and did
Dude, that's
workshops
so
for them and stuff like
cool.
that. So looking forward to having more time for reading, because it's been my month, and I'm anxiety prone, so it's been a crazy month
Yep.
of focusing on that. So I'm looking forward. I like.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to doing that. I want to read a bunch of things. I'm going to be on the hunt for books though that kind of more in your wheelhouse. I think, Megan, that just like stories about people, like memoirs, things like that. Because I'm just wanting to kind of stay in the mindset that I'm getting in now that I'm writing, and just be influenced by things like that.
Oh yeah, Tom. I actually
Very
have
cool.
a suggestion for you. I found this really great book about this guy who was orphaned when he was really young. And he was raised by his butler,
Oh.
and as he got older, he felt that he could be a symbol of vengeance and justice.
So
He had a nice coat.
funny.
I looked for like
right?
half a second. Y'all were like, "Oh, what's he
I
got
was like,
there?"
yeah, I
Like
was
really
like, oh,
listening, yeah.
interesting. It was a
It's
butler
like,
thing,
oh.
I was like,
And then as soon as you said butler,
I was like,
oh, okay.
it's because your face. You were just like, a butler. Yeah.
So, anyways, well, Tom, we'll have to find some really cool stuff for you. And the last thing I want to talk about is in 2 weeks from today, we're going to announce our very first book for our book club. But we are going to have a monthly book club. We have a group on Facebook so you can discuss the books every month. So you've got 2 weeks to get joined, say hi on the group, just make a request. I do ask a couple questions to join the group, but it doesn't matter how you answer them. You're going to get accepted. I just want to know a little bit more about the people who are joining the group. And
It matters a little what they say.
I mean, if they say comics suck, I want to change their mind. Now, if they go off on like a racist book banning filled rant, absolutely.
I don't know. I might still let them on.
Yeah.
If they say like, send me pictures of Marcus's feet, you're probably not gonna
they're
get
getting
accepted.
on. In fact, I'm
Oh,
gonna create a
no.
private group for people like that.
Oh no. Okay, anyway, keep going.
That's actually another group, Megan. Don't worry about that.
Oh god.
So yeah, get joined. In 2 weeks we're going to announce the first book, and every month we're going to have a book. And I eventually would love to do like some sort of book club meetup where we're able to meet up. Spring's coming, so somewhere outside, not up in each other's faces. Can y'all hear my dog?
Yeah, just in the
100%,
background.
Yeah. They're
Oh
hanging
my
out.
gosh,
Yeah, it's
I
okay.
have
no
like
worries.
so many things between me and them, and I cannot believe I can still hear him.
There's some loud boys.
A
It's
turdo.
okay.
Megan, you're selecting the first title, right, for the book club?
I am.
Nice.
Yes,
right.
she is.
I've already selected it, but I'm not telling.
Yeah. So Megan, I'll let you do the announcement because we're going to announce it on
Ew.
Will Eisner Week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's coming up.
I don't know. I don't really like talking. That's why I'm on a podcast.
That's why you're on a podcast.
The last visual medium laugh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that is
Yes.
going to be it for us today here at the VF Comics Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to us. Make sure to check the links below to go to all of our social media or support us on Patreon so that way we can give away, prizes and books and expand. Megan, don't say no. That I need people to give us money so I can afford all these books. Oh, okay. I have to.
You monster!
I'm running out of money.
Say
I work at the library. I do not have the money to buy this many books. But yeah, make sure to do all that, and above all, don't ever forget to read what you love. Thank you for listening.